Hi homesteaders, my name is Melissa with Gullion Homestead and welcome to my channel where I focus on homesteading skills, self-sufficiency, and resilience. To my channel, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. So today I'm going to talk about my top tools, kitchen tools that I think are necessary or that at least I love in my kitchen for homesteading, for preserving, and just to incorporate some self-sufficiency and resilience into my kitchen. And I thought I would share these things because they're things that I love and they're things that I use all the time in my kitchen. So the first thing we're going to talk about is my spice grinder. I have this spice grinder. It sits on my countertop pretty much all the time. That way I can easily grind up anything from the garden or anything in my spice pantry. I've shared before with you how I have a spice pantry. My spice pantry contains pretty much every spice that I have ever needed or that I use in my cooking. And in that, sometimes I order whole spices and then I grind them up myself. They're a little bit cheaper to buy them that way. And then I don't necessarily have a bunch of ground up spices that I'm not going to use. So a perfect example of this would be mustard seed. I can actually throw a mustard seed in here and grind that up and get a mustard powder when I need it. So it's just a great little tool to have. This is the Cuisinart one. It wasn't very expensive. I think I got it on Amazon. Maybe I hit Kohl's with some Kohl's cash. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but it's super easy. You basically plug it in and push the bottom and it grinds everything up really fast. So another thing I use it for is when I bring herbs out of the garden, like basil, for instance, and I put it in the dehydrator to dry it, or I let it air dry for winter seasoning, then I can grind this up into a nice, and I don't think I have any sitting here, but I can grind that up as well as tomato powder, grind that up into a nice thin spice or powder to use in my kitchen. So great tool to have. It's very inexpensive, and if you're thinking about start bulk buying, this is a good thing to have on hand. Next little gadget, which is a cheap little gadget, is this little red tube here. And what that does is it takes your skins off of your garlic. It is, I bet this thing was $6. I know it was under 10. And you basically just put your garlic clove inside here and roll it on the countertop like so, pushing down on your garlic, and it pulls all of your garlic peel off, and then you get a whole garlic that comes out of here. So it's awesome. It's a great little gadget. It can be dishwasher. I can wash it in the dishwasher, or I can wash it by hand, but it's a pretty easy thing to clean up as well. But another great tool I love to have pantry to use for preservation here in my kitchen. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is, this is brand new for me. Very excited about this. And this is an electric roasting pan, I think is what they call it. I ordered this off of Amazon. They used to be like $30. I had one way back in the day, and I know I only spent like $30 on it, and I got rid of it because I used to use it at Thanksgiving and I stopped. This is before I was really, really active in canning and preservation. I would do some canning, but I wasn't really doing any pressure canning, and this is great for any pressure canning you're going to do. So today, I started this morning. I've got vegetables out of the freezer and ham bones and ham hocks in here, and some seasoning that they sent me from the butcher, and I'm actually going to make basically a ham broth instead of a beef broth, and I'm going to can that up. And that way I've got that available for ham and beans that we want to make this winter. And I needed to clean out some areas in my freezer because I've got some stuff that's coming out of the garden that's going in the freezer, and I'm running out of room out there. So I'm working on going through things that we froze last year, and how can I use that this year. If you have watched me and followed me on my channel before, you know I cannot stand to throw away food because it's something that God provides for us, and I just don't want to have to worry about not having food someday. So you might as well go ahead and preserve all you can. So in here, I also have green onions, celery, and then I had some green tomatoes. I went ahead and threw those in there for flavor. And I think that's all I had, yeah. And then filled it up with water. I'm gonna let this cook for about 24 hours. and then I'm going to pressure can that broth, and then we'll have that in our long-term storage. So I'm not sure if we're going to order a whole ham or a whole hog like we did last time, because although we like having ham, there's a lot of parts of the ham that are a lot of parts of the pig that we don't eat. I still have several ham steaks from this winter from the ham that we ordered, plus a couple of full hams out there. And there's just 2 of us in our house. I'm thinking moving forward, I might just go to the butcher and buy kind of the pieces of ham that I want. We've got a lot of pork steaks out there, so we still have a lot to go through. But this will probably last in our pantry for 2 to 3 years. So great thing to have in stock. These run about anywhere from $80 to $100 now. I checked them locally and I checked them on Amazon, but I bought this one on Amazon for $80. So I hated that it was as expensive as it was, since I threw one out in my past. But I also am planning on using this for pizza sauce and cooking down tomatoes. So this is a great thing to have in your stock, in your back, like your tool belt. So that you can have it for anything that you're preserving or taking out of your garden. All right, next thing is going to be my food processor. Now I have a Cuisinart food processor. Here it is right here. And I purchased this probably about a year and a half ago, and I use it probably every other day. It is a fabulous tool to have in your kitchen. You can, not to sound like an infomercial, but you can dice and chop and whip things together in no time. The great thing about this Cuisinart is it came with all of the newer ones actually come with all of these tools. Some people have an old Cuisinart and then they have added some of the kits that go with it. But this one right here specifically has a dicing tool, which is fabulous. The only complaint I have about it is that it's pretty difficult to clean these little grills. It comes with this little thing right here to kind of clean it, but honestly, it takes a little bit of work to get it clean. But you put this inside of your Cuisinart with a flat blade, and it will chop all of your vegetables into cubes. So it's great for like potatoes, or if you want a relish and you want cubed carrots, any of those kind of things. If you're making a vegetable soup and you want to cube all your vegetables, you literally just feed it through the top here and it cubes it all into little cubes into your food processor. It is awesome. I found out about this from Carolyn from Homesteading Family. She actually added this about a year ago. I was watching her and she bought this thing and added this to her Cuisinart she already had. And so I started to look at the food processor I had to see if they had a kit like this, and they didn't. And so I just bit the bullet and bought a whole new food processor. So I had the Ninja system, and it didn't have anything that would do, at the time, it might now, but it didn't have anything that would do something like this. So I love this part of the of this Cuisinart. It also comes with this great kit that actually has all kinds. I mean, you basically can use it as a blender. There's a whipping blade. There's really, I grate my cheese with it. I actually buy blocks of cheese, 5 pounds at a time from Azure Standard. And then I grate my cheese and freeze my cheese in freezer bags for like casseroles and tacos and that kind of thing. So it is phenomenal. I love this. This is something I don't know how I ever lived without. It's specifically really good if you have a kitchen that is a working kitchen. If you're preserving food and if you're cooking a lot from scratch, these are great tools to have. This is a perfect tool. I use it a lot for cooking from scratch. The other thing is sometimes I just don't feel like cutting up my garlic. So after I peel the garlic, I throw it in my food processor and let it chop it up really small. And I always put more garlic in everything that I have anyway, because I have garlic and I love garlic. So it's good for that as well. Let's look at what I have to preserve my food that I think is important in a homesteading kitchen. Okay, you guys. Yes, we are in my garage. I have a freezer out here and a freezer over there in the garage. We have 2 freezers, a really large freezer that I've shared on my channel before, and a medium-sized freezer over on that side of the garage. But one thing that we do have is an Excalibur dehydrator. I actually did have a different dehydrator. I think it was I was thinking it was Presto, but I can't remember. It's the round trays. That thing burnt up in about a year. I bought all the extra trays to go with it so that you could continue to add more stacking trays, but it almost caught on fire. And when that happened, I decided to go ahead and invest in Excalibur. I'm very happy with this dehydrator. It's got these trays. I have them sitting on top here, but they've got these trays that will actually fit inside the dehydrator. So you can fit, I thought there were 10. Yeah, there's 10 trays. The nice thing is you can pull the trays out. So if you have like bigger items like basil that sticks up really high, you can actually use every other tray to dehydrate. So I keep this in my garage for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's not the quietest thing. So that's the one thing I would warrant you on. And the other thing is it heats up the house. And so the garage is not air conditioned. So it seems like Steve and I looked at this and we seemed like it was a better place to put our dehydrator was out here because it's already hot out here, and it's actually not really costing us any extra money to cool the house back down after we heat it up. Plus, we have a very open floor plan, and it's just kind of loud in our house. The one thing we don't have is a freeze dryer. It is something that is very heavy on my heart. I really, really want a freeze dryer. I want a freeze dryer because not necessarily for us to have food now, but I have a plan to, in the next 10 years, to try to preserve enough food for Steve and I, so that as we age and we maybe can't garden anymore or can't preserve food anymore, we would actually have food on the shelves. So freeze-dried food will last up to 25 years. And so I have a goal to eventually have enough food for us to live off of in our later years of life. And that's a huge goal of mine. It's a big one for sure. And where we live right now, we really don't have a good space for a freeze dryer. I have tried to figure out a place that we could put a freeze dryer. It's also loud, so I don't want it in the house. I would want it out here, but the only way to actually get one out here would be to take over some of Steve's tool area, and I don't think he would love that. So something on my homesteading radar, I think having a freeze dryer is something that would be awesome. And I also think it's a necessity tool to have if you're growing your own food. So something I don't have yet, have a goal to, but did want to share that with you. And in my opinion, from doing all the research I've done, Harvest Right is the best. I actually spoke to somebody at the farmer's market who owns 8 of them. And he said the refurbished ones are like $500 cheaper, or maybe $500, $800, something like that cheaper. And they work just as well as his brand new freeze dryer. So something to keep in mind. All right, now let's go look at canning. Yes, I'm sitting on my floor. So I keep my pressure canner in my kitchen pretty much all summer long. When I'm done using it on the stove or outside, because we do some pressure canning outside, I actually just put it right here underneath this little antique table, and I keep it at my fingertips all the time. Okay, so I have an All-American canner. This is new. I got it last winter. I used it throughout the winter, and now I'm using it this summer. It's quite the investment, let me tell you, but this one was, I believe, it ended up being $600. But we saved for this one. It's something that I really wanted because my other canner, I had a Presto canner, pressure canner. It worked fine to start. It's like $100, I think, $109, I think is what we paid for it online. But the steel on it is actually quite thin, a lot thinner than this. And I ended up warping it because I ran out of water in my pressure canner. That was my own fault. So there's lots of things about this pressure canner that I like, but I would say regardless of what pressure canner you get, a pressure canner is important because any low acid foods actually need to be cooked in a pressure canner. And that would be things like green beans and meats and soups and broths have to be pressure canned. So if this is something that you're planning on getting, like if you're planning on doing some preservation of other things besides jams, jellies, salsas, and tomatoes, then you really need or fruit of any sort, you really do need a pressure canner. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. These are just like my top tools that I love. They're not all cheap tools. They're not tools that a lot of people have in their house. I mean, I could have gone through knives and spoons and that kind of thing, ladles and canning supplies and that kind of stuff, but a lot of people already have those things. But these are tools that we have here in our kitchen that actually make things simpler for me. It actually really has been a game changer in most situations. The one thing I didn't go through was my KitchenAid, but I also have a food grinder on my KitchenAid, and it's fabulous as well. I will show a video sometime on how we use the food grinder, but you can grind meat and you can actually basically do your tomatoes in a puree, like crushed tomatoes, basically. That's how I make my salsa, my pizza sauce. So that's a great tool to have. Of course, it's taken us some time to build up to all of these tools. I started out with what was simple and what was least expensive or most economical, and I've built up from there because of the money we saved on growing and preserving our own food. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe again so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. And we will have another video, maybe even a garden tour next week. So thanks. We're hoping you're having the best day. Bye.